It was January 6th, and the lights inside the Intuit Dome beamed brighter than ever. A new era was beginning as WWE Raw made its debut on Netflix, a landmark moment in sports entertainment history. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, the crowd electric, the stakes monumental. And then, it happened. The guitar riff blared. That unmistakable anthem rang out, Real American. For nearly 4 decades, it had been more than just entrance music. It was a war cry. A celebration. A promise that the hero was on his way. It was Hulk Hogan's song. The crowd recognized it instantly. Generations of fans, new and old, knew what it meant. But instead of the thunderous cheers that once shook Madison Square Garden, a different sound filled the dome that night. Booing. Loud, unrelenting, unmistakable booing. There was no nostalgia. No warm glow of childhood memory. Only rejection. And there he stood, Hogan, the man who once defined WWE's golden age, who once body-slammed giants and headlined the first WrestleMania, now standing in front of thousands who were no longer chanting his name in reverence but drowning him out in disapproval. He tried to speak. He thanked the fans. He acknowledged their role in building his career. He reached for grace. But the response didn't soften. That night became the final WWE appearance of Hulk Hogan's life. Just over 6 months later, on July 24th, the world would learn of his passing. And suddenly, that January 6th moment, a night that should have been a homecoming, became something else entirely. A farewell cloaked in disappointment. A goodbye that neither he nor the fans fully recognized in the moment. Should it have ended like that? No. But can we really blame those fans? Also no. Because the truth is complicated. Hogan, the icon, helped build WWE into what it is. His matches, his charisma, his larger-than-life persona turned wrestling into a global phenomenon. He was more than a man, he was a movement. Hulkamania swept across the globe like wildfire. But Hogan, the man, left behind a trail of controversy. Words, actions, stories. Some forgiven by time, some not. For many fans, the damage wasn't repaired. And when his music hit that night, the reaction wasn't to the legend, it was to the man beneath the bandana. In a world that's evolving, where fans demand more than performance, they demand accountability, Hogan's legacy became a reflection of the complex dance between past glories and present values. So yes, the crowd booed. Not because they forgot what he did in the 80s and 90s, but because they couldn't separate it from everything else that followed. It was a moment of reckoning. A mirror held up to the entire wrestling industry. And Hogan, whether he expected it or not, was at the center of it. There's something tragic about it. To be celebrated for decades, to live as a hero in millions of memories, only to return and feel that love turned cold. To have one last moment on a grand stage, only for it to be tainted, not with indifference but with rejection. And yet, that's the price of legacy. It is not controlled by the performer. It is not sealed away in a vault. It evolves. It belongs to the people. And in that arena on that night, the people made their feelings clear. But does that erase all that Hogan contributed? No. Because this, too, is part of the story. Legends are not perfect. Heroes are not without flaw. And wrestling's greatest icons are forged not just in championship gold and pyrotechnics but in the fire of public opinion. And still, when he stood there, facing a crowd that didn't want him, it was brave. He didn't walk away. He stood in the storm. He thanked them anyway. And now, with his death, the conversation deepens. Fans revisit old footage, watch old matches. They remember the shoulder blocks, the big boots, the finger points, the epic comebacks. And they remember the man. The full man. The triumph and the tarnish. Some are mourning the hero they grew up idolizing. Others are reflecting on the complex legacy left behind. And still others are doing both. Because both can be true. Hogan was a pioneer. Hogan was a flawed man. Hogan changed wrestling forever. Hogan lost the faith of many. Hogan tried to come back. And Hogan, on that January night, found out that some wounds don't heal with time. But maybe that's not the end of his story. Maybe that moment at the Intuit Dome wasn't just the closing chapter, but a raw, unscripted epilogue. A lesson. A message to future superstars that legacy is fragile, and it must be protected. He stood under the lights one last time. He heard the verdict of the people. And now, he is gone. But the conversations continue. About greatness. About accountability. About second chances and final impressions. And perhaps someday, the cheers will return, not to erase the past, but to acknowledge all of it. The full spectrum of a man who was once the most famous face in wrestling. For now, we remember him as he was on that final night. Standing tall, facing the music, hearing the crowd, not as he wished, but as they truly felt. And in that, there is a strange kind of poetry. Because Hulk Hogan's last WWE moment wasn't scripted. It was real. Painfully, publicly real. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly how legends should say goodbye.